Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St. Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. As we continue our series on the principles of the Second Vatican Council, today's Do You Know question is, do you know why Vatican II called for the active role of the laity? Since the beginning of the Church, beginning certainly with Constantine in roughly the year 312 and so on, the Church was privileged by Constantine and began to develop the structure and the hierarchical structure that existed within the Roman Empire. Now, it took many centuries for the structure to develop, but eventually it developed into what we would call a two-class system. The system of the ordained and the class of the non-ordained, or often referred to as the laity. Now, the ordained consider themselves to be the professionals, and therefore they took on the responsibility for the mission of the church in carrying out Jesus' mission and ministry. The non-ordained, the laity, were the non-professionals, and therefore they did not have an active role. They were extremely passive, and they essentially did the bidding of the ordained. For at least a century before the Second Vatican Council, many people, theologians and movements, were calling for the active involvement of the laity in the church's life, and based primarily on their baptismal call. When Vatican II came together, especially the Vatican II participants, they were very much aware of these theologians and movements and actively promoted the involvement of all God's people in the life of the church. And so they called for the conscious and active involvement of all based on baptism. So Vatican II did two significant shifts, if we want, that came into being as a result of the vision of church that was worked out at the Second Vatican Council. The first shift was a call for the full, conscious, and active participation of all the laity based on their baptismal call and commitment. And with this, I'd like to read a passage from the Sacrosanctum Concilium, the Constitution on Divine Liturgy, which expressly states this principle. And it is from number 14 of the liturgy document, and it states very clearly that Mother Church earnestly desires that all the faithful should be led to that full, conscious, and active participation in liturgical celebrations, which is demanded by the very nature of the liturgy, and to which the Christian people, a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a redeemed people, have a right and obligation by reason of their baptism. In the restoration and promotion of the sacred liturgy, the full and active participation by all the people is the aim to be considered before all else, for it is the primary and indispensable source from which the faithful are to derive the true Christian spirit. So obviously the quote very much advocates full, conscious, and active participation, not just, by the way, in liturgy, but in all aspects of church life. Decision-making, study, teaching, sharing their wisdom and expertise, and so on. The second shift that occurs comes from Lumen Gentium, the document on the dogmatic constitution on the church, in which it essentially shifted the responsibility for ministry from the ordained to all the baptized, which advocated very clearly a focus of all the baptized involved in the mission and ministry of the church and carrying out Jesus' mission and ministry. And so the Lumen Gentium also advocated the fact that there's only one vocation and all are called. The vocation of the baptized, all are called to that vocation. We just live it out in different lifestyles. For example, clergy, single, married, the religious, and so on. That vocation, by the way, is to constantly take on the mind and heart of Jesus in our daily life and action and have it impact all of our actions and all of our occupations and so on. As a result of these shifts, since Vatican II, there's been a tremendous ministry explosion. We have ministry all over the place, which is rich in the gifts that people bring to the ministry of the church. We have Eucharistic ministers, lectors, we have prison ministers, people involved in justice, people teaching, and so on. All these ministries are really a gift to the church and to the whole people of God. And so we've had this ministry explosion as a result. Laity are involved in all aspects of church life and so on. The tension that this can create is that oftentimes, especially with the clergy having a history of being in charge or dictating, that the clergy seem to be marginalized or de-emphasized in support of the laity. Actually, the vision of church that comes out of the Second Vatican Council is one in which clergy and laity together work in building up the reign of God. We're not in competition with one another. What primarily unites us together is our baptism in the Lord, and that is what pushes us forward to work together to build the reign of God in our midst. So I hope this has helped to explain just a bit of why Vatican II called for the active role of the laity and why it's important that we continue to sustain and build and really encourage the constant participation of the people of God, the baptized, in all aspects of church life, not just liturgy, but all the other aspects. So I hope this explains just a bit about the principle of Vatican II's concern and call for the active role of the laity, and I hope we'll return again to more Do You Know series questions as we continue to explore the principles of the Second Vatican Council. Thank you very much.